Sir Keir Starmer is in talks with France to return channel migrants in a one-in and one-out system.
Yeah, in the scheme, Britain would send migrants back to France within weeks of their arrival and return, and the UK would take asylum seekers from France instead.
Oh, I don't know why they just don't turn the boat back and then we can do it from there. But joining us now, human rights lawyer David Hay. David, this sounds like a reasonable proposition, although I would have the return done sooner. So instead of them getting on an RNLI boat that takes them to the UK, I would just take them to France and then we could do the swap that way. But talk to me about the idea and whether it's against someone's human rights or not.
Hi, good morning to you both. At the outset, I think it's absurd and unworkable. We can't even deal with the migrants coming one way in a cost-efficient and time-efficient manner. So what they're now suggesting is that if we go through the process and a potential asylum seeker gets on a boat in France, comes across the channel, isn't stopped by the French authorities, which of course we're potentially paying them to do, still comes into the UK, somehow, miraculously, we're then going to process them in 4 weeks and send them to France, at which point France will send one of their genuine asylum claimants, they say, to us, which we will then carry on the application with. Or like I said, we can't even manage one way, let alone here, back and back again. And I just don't think it's workable. And I think, the only people that will be happy this morning are the people smugglers that will be laughing at us.
Well, what about, instead of them actually arriving in UK shores, just to send them back to France and then do it that way? So they get on boats anyway, they quite safely get on boats, and then the RNLI or whoever it is pick them up, and then they take them, the RNLI then turn their boat back and bring them to the UK. Why can't they just, if we are going to go along with this, which I actually think is ludicrous, why can't they just carry on and put them on the boat and then carry on and send them back to France and do the exchange that way? Why do we have to process them?
Well, I think the reason for that will be the current legal and human rights laws that we have. So that will be the things preventing that happening. Now,
but why can't they just be turned back and they'd be processed in France? Why do we have to process them here? Why do they have to get here? Why can't we
I think what they're trying to avoid a shenanigans effectively in the middle of the channel. And I think that, like I said, it's just an absurd scheme. I think, now, I heard Mark White earlier, and if all of the people that come across the channel are sent back, which of course France would never agree to, but if that was the case, then you could potentially work. I think it's very difficult if you're trying to process people in the middle of a channel on a boat. I don't think that it simply won't pass current.
Well, I don't mean processing them on a boat. I'm saying that when the boat gets there, you then send them back to France, where they'll be processed, and in the meantime, we take the same number that got on the boat. I don't want that, but if we're going to do it, if you did that, you would literally stop the smugglers model immediately. It would be over.
Yeah, as long as there was some form of processing of their whatever claim it may be under this new law, once they come to the shores, there's no reason for that to take years or even 4 weeks. It can be done very quickly, and then they could be sent back essentially from the port once that paperwork is done. That could take a day, few days if we get our act together. So that's possible, and that's possible under existing human rights laws. The thing that stops it effectively is the fact that we don't have the administration capabilities. We've shown we have asylum cases in this year that are still 10 years on and not resolved. That's absurd as well.
Do you want to save a boatload of cash this summer, wherever you have a trip planned? The one thing you're going to need is access to the internet and on the go. And you can do that easily with Saily. Hit the link in the description to get 15% off your first eSIM plan ready for your trip, so you can browse to your heart's content. Saily gets you a local SIM card you can use when traveling, so you don't have to pay those crazy roaming fees just to send a message or check the latest news. Now, they've got plans in over 160 countries, 8 regions, so pretty much everywhere, wherever you're going, they'll be able to make sure you're connected. So how does it work? All you've got to do is this. Hit the link in the description to download the app. It will work on iOS or Android. Buy a plan. You can choose an amount of data and time frame that suits you best. And then just install the eSIM on your phone. When you land at your holiday destination, you can activate your plan instantly. And if that wasn't enough, Saily eSIMs only ever have to be installed once. So when you go on your next trip, you just buy a plan for a new country, turn that eSIM back on, and boom, you're back watching me on GVUs. I'll be using a Saily SIM on my next holiday because it's actually faster than some of the hotel Wi-Fis. You can get unlimited data if you want, so you can scroll away to your heart's content. And when you leave the hotel, you don't have to do that annoying thing of Wi-Fi hopping because you've got constant connectivity wherever you go. And they've got 24/7 support as well and a full refund policy if your eSIM isn't compatible. So get sorted for your next trip, download Saily using the link in the description below, and if you use the code NEWS at checkout, you'll get an exclusive 15% discount on us. So click the link, download Saily, and use the code NEWS at checkout.
OK, David Haig, thank you very much. Appreciate your company. Human rights lawyer. We'll catch up very soon.
OK, well, in other news, Sir Keir Starmer is in talks with France to return channel migrants in a one-in, one-out system.
Well, in the scheme, Britain would send migrants back to France within weeks of their arrival, and in return, the UK would take asylum seekers from France. So one in, one out.
OK, well, Home Office sources indicated the scheme is a work in progress, with hopes of an announcement of an agreement in principle, and hope that that can happen soon.
Well, let's get more on this now with the immigration lawyer Harjap Singh Bangal. Harjap, I suppose there is a principle here that might be quite hard for a lot of people to sort of internalise and understand. How does this get numbers down if for every one person we send back, we get another person coming forward?
I think people are right to think that, and I was thinking exactly the same thing, to be fair. But what the actual nitty-gritty of the deal is, if we look into it, we're going to be allowing people from France to come here who would have a right to come here anyway under the family reunification rules. So that's family members of people already being granted residency here or asylum seekers here. But in return for that, we'll be sending the people crossing the channel back. So it's more of a case of something better than nothing. It's a hope that it will deter the gangs from sending people here, because people might have in the back of their minds, well, I could be sent to France immediately as soon as I land because of this deal. It technically won't really get numbers. It might get numbers down in the fact that we might have had people crossing the channel anyway, and we would have had to take the reunification people anyway in that aspect. But if we're looking at, will it deter channel crossings? Until this deal comes in, we're not really going to know. Is it going to act as a deterrent? We don't know. What's to prevent people from, as soon as they get to France, trying again, coming back again? Is it going to stop the gangs? It's reaching, I would say, initially here. And until we actually see it in action, we won't know. Are gangs going to be deterred from it? If people are not deterred by the fear of drowning or boat capsizing or dying at sea, then is this really going to deter people? That's the premise it's going to work. Deterrent schemes don't really work. We've seen that before.
It's tricky as well to sell to the public because I would guess that a lot of people don't want one in, regardless of whether there's one out, if you see what I mean, Harjap.
Yeah, well, this is what Smash the Gangs was about, isn't it? It's about stopping people coming in illegally per se. Not in a barter deal. I suppose the way Keir Starmer's going around it, he's thinking, well, hold on, I'm going to try and grab everything I can in order to see if it works. That includes deals with the EU, throwing money into task forces, trying to patrol the beaches. So he's got to do something, because this is a thorn in Labour's side, because the optics look totally bad on it.
Well, if it is tightly implemented, I can see this actually having a huge impact. Because if you're going to get on a boat and you know that you will be sent back to France, even you don't mind if someone else is going to be sent across to the UK. You're caring about yourself. The reason you get in a boat is you want to come to the UK. And if we're saying everyone in that boat is going back to France, oh, fine, we'll take some people elsewhere to come to the UK. I mean, suddenly the boats dry up, I suppose, is the logic, because people in those boats know they're not coming to the UK. I suppose the devil is in the detail, though, because we don't yet have commitments that 100% of the people in the boats will be sent back to France. I can see this 100% working if 100% of those people were immediately returned to France. But that doesn't look like it's the precise detail of the deal.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think what happens is, if suddenly, say within the next 2 months, every single person who crossed the channel was sent back, that might send something out to a message to the gangs, and people will think twice as opposed to it. But it would have to be every single person. If it's 50%, people would still take them odds. They're probably the best odds they've had. You know, they took worse odds when crossing other borders elsewhere in other countries and from war, fleeing their homes from war-torn countries.
And also,
So
let's be honest, some
Mm.
people want to cross illegally for a reason. For example, they want to be involved in the black economy. They want to live in Britain illegally. Not everyone crossing the Channel wants to even get asylum in this country necessarily on those terms. And of course, there are other ways of getting here illegally anyway.
Well, yeah, before the small boats were highlighted, the traditional route was through the lorries. And like when I first started my job in the 2000s, then the majority of people used to come via lorries, and they used to get detected at Dover if the lorry was detected, or if not, they used to just assimilate into here, into the public and into Britain.
And
but
now if you drive to Calais and you take the Eurotunnel and you see just the enormous amount of infrastructure, I mean, tens of millions of pounds of British taxpayers' money has gone to building what is essentially a fortress around the lorry parks in Calais. It is the most extraordinary sight to drive through. But Harjap Singh Bangal, thanks so much for explaining what is a tentative deal between us and the French.
Yes, well, let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Is a 1 in, 1 out scheme the solution to all of this? This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up.